St. Peter's one of my favourite characters in the Gospel stories. A man from really humble origins, a really lovable character, not a man of letters or learning, a fisherman, a resourceful man, an enthusiast, a man of passion. He was first called Simon, meaning one who listens. But Jesus saw him, he encountered him in his work as a fisherman. And Jesus called him. "Follow me," he said. And Jesus gave him a new name. He called him Peter, meaning a rock. Funny name, really, for a man who let Jesus down so much. There are so many stories about Peter. Maybe I relate to him because Peter kept trying and failing, kept misunderstanding. There was a time when Jesus walked on water. Peter thought he'd give it a go and nearly drowned. Peter misunderstood what Jesus said. There was a famous time at a place called Caesarea Philippi when Jesus had been talking about his calling. And Peter said, "Yes, you're the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus seemed to affirm what Peter was saying and went on to talk about how he was going to suffer and die. And Peter leapt straight in and said, "No way, Lord, that can't happen to you." And Jesus turned on him with some fierceness, saying, "Get behind me, Satan." How that must have stung Peter to find out he was wrong. But Jesus still loved Peter, still confided him, still taught him, still led him. When Jesus was arrested, Peter let him down, perhaps in the worst way possible. And Jesus had predicted it. Jesus had said to Peter, "You'll deny that you even know me." And Peter said, "Not me, Lord, never." And Jesus says, "Before the cock crows, you'll do this." And that awful evening when Jesus was arrested, Peter followed the soldiers, went to the place where they were interrogating him. And outside that building, Peter tried to warm himself by a fire and someone recognized him. "Hey, you were with that Jesus." "No, don't know who you're talking about," said Peter. Again and again they said, "Yes, you were with him." And Peter denied him. And then a cockerel crowed. Peter must have been in such despair. Peter didn't seem to be there at the crucifixion. The women stayed with Jesus when Peter died. Perhaps Peter was just too afraid at that point, too ashamed, too caught up in his own feelings of grief, despair, and terror. But the amazing thing in Peter's story is after the resurrection, when Jesus rose from the dead, Jesus still called Peter, still recognized him as a friend, came to him again on the sea, taught him again how to fish, and said to him, "Peter, do you love me?" 3 times Peter says to him, Jesus says to Peter, "Do you love me?" And 3 times Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And Jesus again calls Peter, calls him to continue his work, to look after, to teach, to pray for those who seek to follow Jesus. Peter's calling wasn't an easy one. Peter's calling wasn't to be successful. Peter's calling sometimes was to fail and then to pick himself up. But Peter's calling was to be faithful. What a wonderful sign he is of those who choose to follow Jesus and who are willing to give their all for him. Amen.